The entire evening passed in an atmosphere of jokes and laughter around a long wooden table in the spacious hall of an old boarding house. The whole company was gathered. Yulia sat next to Andrei and her husband, as they had arrived a bit late for dinner. Across from them was Artyom, a recently hired employee. It was a formal corporate event for Yulia's company. Under different circumstances, Andrei would have stayed home with the kids and would not have attended. The next day, they returned to the city after an outing. Andrei knew he had a beautiful and successful wife. They both had great jobs, 2 wonderful sons aged 13 and 14, and everything in life seemed perfect. But in recent weeks, Yulia had appeared distant, as if something was troubling her. He tried to discuss it with her, but she always avoided the conversation, making him feel as though something was slipping from his understanding. Yulia mentioned the picnic the day before the trip. Andrei agreed immediately and helped organize things so that the boys could stay with her parents, who lived in the city. The man noticed that his wife was not thrilled about his presence, although she didn't say anything. On the bus, Andrei noticed many new faces, employees he hadn't met before, as he only attended Yulia's company gatherings during New Year's parties and usually stayed in the background. Upon arrival, the guests settled into their rooms, and soon Yulia went outside. Andrei hesitated a bit, but then followed her and found her on the open terrace, engrossed in a conversation with a young man, nodding with a smile. Andrei tensed up, feeling a growing sense of anxiety. At that moment, a young female employee stopped next to him. "Have they been having an affair for a long time?" Andrei asked quietly, nodding in the direction of Yulia and Artyom. "Not yet, there's no full-blown affair, but there's definitely a strong attraction. Both of them are not free, so it's just talks for now. Although, he depends on her approval, she's the one who handles his documents, which she's been constantly reviewing," the employee replied with a light smile. "Who is his wife?" "Larissa, she works in another company. I've seen her a couple of times, she's a nice woman." "Well, I have to go, my husband is waiting." "And you are?" "Katya, but I'm married." "Nice to meet you." "And you?" "Andrei, and I'm not free either," he said, trying to conceal his inner tension. After what he had heard, Andrei realized what could have happened if he hadn't come along with Yulia on this trip. From that moment on, he didn't leave her side, despite her obvious irritation. And so the evening arrived at the set table. Laughter and conversations filled the air, but the tension was palpable. Yulia, looking at the abundance of alcohol, suggested, "Andrei, tonight you can drink as much as you want, I won't limit you," she said with a smile. "But don't expect this at home," she added, and he smirked in response. "Okay, dear, I'll drink as much as I can," he said. However, despite her playful tone, Andrei couldn't miss the hidden message. Such a generous permission was clearly an attempt to distract him. Perhaps she wanted to take advantage of his state to conceal something. He knew that Artyom was staying in room 1 on the 2nd floor. Andrei watched as Yulia and Artyom started discussing work matters at a table. Seizing the moment, he decided to join the conversation. He had also studied at the same university as Yulia. It turned out that Artyom claimed to have studied there too, but much later. Andrei asked a few leading questions about the professors and, after just a few minutes, realized that Artyom had never attended that university. Andrei had graduated long ago, but still kept in touch with the university and knew all the current and former professors. His suspicions only grew stronger. Meanwhile, the music started playing, but the fun didn't last long. Suddenly, the equipment malfunctioned. Few knew that Andrei, having carefully inspected it during installation, had tweaked some things and switched the wires. The music stopped, and after an hour, the guests began to disperse to their rooms. Yulia, with a touch of sarcasm, turned to her husband. "Shall we go? I'll escort you to your room." "No need, I'm not drunk," Andrei replied with a smirk. Yulia looked at him with disbelief. "Are you sure? Do you think you can get there by yourself?" she asked. "Yes, I'm completely sober," he responded. Surprised, she added, "But you drink so much." Andrei chuckled slightly. "Yes, but I'm sober." They sat a little longer at the nearly empty table. Artyom finished his meal and headed to his room. Andrei and Yulia returned to their own room. They went to bed, but Andrei couldn't sleep. As soon as Yulia quietly got up, threw on a robe, and headed for the door, he asked, "Where are you going?" "I can't sleep," she replied. "Neither can I." "I'll go get some fresh air too," he said, putting on a tracksuit. They went out together onto the porch. Artyom was sitting on a bench, smoking. Seeing Yulia, he perked up, but when Andrei appeared behind her, his excitement quickly faded. "Can't sleep either, Artyom?" Andrei asked calmly. "Yes, I decided to have a cigarette before bed, to relax," Artyom muttered, clearly embarrassed. "Smoking is bad, you know," Andrei remarked with a cold smile. "I know, but I don't smoke often. I doubt cigarettes can ever be good. They all slowly but surely kill the body. By the way, why didn't you bring Larissa?" Andrei unexpectedly shifted the topic. "Larissa?" Artyom repeated, slightly raising an eyebrow in surprise. "Yes, your wife," Andrei continued with a smile. "She would have liked it here." Yulia's expression showed that she didn't know Artyom was married. However, Andrei didn't stop and added, "A lot of people came here with their kids. We should have brought ours too, but we decided to leave them with their grandparents." "Where did you leave yours?" "They're with my wife and her parents at the seaside," Artyom responded, clearly tense. "This is just a segment. I'll continue in the next message." "Great idea. I'll keep that in mind for the future." "Well, I've finished my cigarette. I'm going to bed." "Good night." Artyom quickly ended the conversation, clearly not wanting to delve into the topic. Andrei and Yulia wondered a bit more in the silence of the night. At one point, they noticed a hedgehog scurrying along the fence, probably searching for food left by the local workers. This simple moment brought them a few minutes of tranquility. Then, they returned to their room, and Yulia immediately fell into a deep sleep. She woke up to Andrei gently stroking her head. "What are you doing?" she whispered sleepily. "Waking you up, my love. Many people are already up, and breakfast will be served soon." "It's time to get up," he replied with a soft smile. "Are you ready?" she asked, stretching. "As you can see, I've already washed up and packed. Today we're going home." The time before departure flew by. Andrei stayed close to Yulia the whole time, as if he didn't want to lose sight of her. Finally, everyone boarded the bus and headed back to the city. As the bus passed by Yulia's parents' house, where their children were staying, Katya, sitting in front with her husband, glanced at Andrei and bit her lip, realizing who she had shared the rumors about Yulia and Artyom with. Their Toyota was parked in the yard, ready for any road conditions. After warm embraces with the parents and brief accounts of the trip, they got into the car and headed home. Once at home, Yulia got busy preparing dinner, while Andrei and the boys immersed themselves in their small projects, absorbed in their work together. Soon, Yulia called everyone to the table, reminding them to wash their hands first. During dinner, the eldest son, Alexander, began to excitedly tell a story. This morning, when everyone was still asleep, Grandma went to the market and brought fresh mushrooms. She fried them and said there are a lot in the forest now. "Did you eat them?" Yulia asked, surprised. "Yes, they were delicious," Alexander replied. "I need to call my mom and tell her not to give the kids mushrooms. It's dangerous." "Oh, come on," Andrei responded with a smile. "Our boys aren't little kids anymore. In a couple of years, they'll be adults. It's nothing serious." "Dad, can we go to the countryside for mushrooms to visit the other grandma?" the younger son asked. "Why not? It's only 7 in the evening. If we pack quickly, we'll be in the village by 10, and in the morning, we can go to the forest early." "But Andrei, you have work tomorrow," Yulia reminded him. "I remember, but I have 2 weeks of accumulated leave," he replied. Andrei immediately called his boss. Within a few minutes, the matter was settled. He hung up the phone and announced, Sasha, Vovka, get ready. We're going to Grandma's village for a week. You know what to pack. Should we take the fishing rods? The younger son asked enthusiastically. Of course, bring them, Andrei smiled. The children ran joyfully to their room to start packing. At that moment, Andrei was pensively swirling his fork in his salad, then looked up and said, Yulia, I'm not a child, and I understand everything. You like Artyom, and on that trip, I was like a thorn in your side. Everything you planned fell apart because of me. Yulia froze, hearing these words, but quickly composed herself. Are you serious? You're jealous of Artyom? This is nonsense. What made you think such a thing? Say what you want, Yulia, Andrei interrupted her with a calm but cold tone. You'll regret your words later. I'm not asking for proof, it's obvious to me. I know that because of my presence, nothing happened between you two, but I'm not going to be your watchdog. My trust is gone. I just can't believe that you could think like this. What got into you? Yulia looked at him with wide eyes. Nothing got into me, I just understood everything during the picnic. We'll return with the kids in a week, and what happens after that depends on you. I need to see your sincerity. And if he appears in this apartment while I'm gone, I won't let it go unnoticed. At that moment, Sasha burst into the kitchen, joyfully announcing, We're ready for the trip. Andrei calmly put down his fork, stood up, and silently left the room. He quickly packed his documents, tracksuit, and other things, and quietly left the apartment without saying a word of goodbye. Yulia was left alone in the empty apartment. She knew Andrei was right. The whole idea of the picnic had only come about so she could spend time with Artyom. She sincerely hoped that Andrei would refuse to go, as he always considered such events a waste of time and detrimental to team building. But unexpectedly, he agreed. On Friday at work, Yulia had even warned Artyom that her husband would be joining her. Despite that, she couldn't resist and went to Artyom as soon as they arrived, finding him sitting in the gazebo. They had planned to meet in the evening when Andrei would be engrossed in work discussions. She subtly encouraged him to drink more than usual, giving him free rein to drink as much as he wanted, something she never allowed at home. But to her surprise, Andrei not only agreed but also turned out to be an unexpectedly pleasant conversation partner for Artyom. Skillfully, he got the information he wanted, even though it seemed like they were talking about trivial matters. Yulia, lost in her thoughts, didn't pay attention to their conversation. When the music began, she was about to invite Artyom to dance, but suddenly the equipment malfunctioned. Attempts to fix it failed, and Yulia returned to the table. Only then did she notice 2 empty vodka bottles beside her husband and thought that he must have drunk most of it. Yulia suggested that Artyom help take Andrei to his room, but before they could get up, Andrei spoke in a completely sober voice. No need, I don't need help. Not only am I not drunk, I'm not even tipsy. Yulia, shocked, realized that he was completely sober. The story continues further, so I'll complete the translation in the next message. Later that evening, they both went to their room. Yulia lay in bed, still pondering the events of the night. After a while, she decided to go outside, assuming that Artyom would be waiting for her. But, to her surprise, Andrei also got up and followed her. Artyom was sitting on the bench, and Andrei started a conversation with him about the harmful effects of smoking. At some point, Yulia heard something that truly shocked her. Artyom was married. Moreover, he had children who were vacationing at the seaside with his wife's parents. Yulia started to realize that Andrei understood there was something budding between her and Artyom. After walking around the paths of the boarding house with her husband, they returned to the room, and she fell asleep, deciding that she would have a serious conversation with Artyom at the office on Monday. He would have to explain why he never mentioned his family. From the beginning, her attraction to him hadn't implied any serious intentions, she saw it merely as a light flirtation. Artyom was a pleasant person, and from the moment he joined the office, a friendly understanding had developed between them. They often discussed work issues, and Artyom knew how to make her smile. However, as she later realized, he sometimes lacked professional knowledge and got confused with elementary concepts. Now, however, Andre had given her an ultimatum, and she couldn't even imagine her life without him. Yulia understood that Andre didn't have proof of her infidelity, but she also knew that he didn't need any. How could she get out of this complicated situation? Artyom wasn't important to her, he was just a distraction that had unexpectedly turned into a drama. She hadn't planned anything serious, maybe just light hugs or fleeting kisses. But when they arrived at the site, she found out that Artyom had arranged a separate room for himself. This was a clear hint, and she felt a sense of relief that everything fell through. Yulia knew that their female staff always noticed everything, and she didn't want the situation to spiral out of control. After Andre left with the children, Yulia remained alone. She washed the dishes, cleaned up in the kitchen, and, feeling a bit tired, went into the bedroom. Sitting in front of the mirror, she thought about her marriage. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Andre, and if there was even the slightest chance to save their relationship, Yulia was determined to take it. Meanwhile, Andre woke the children up early, and they quickly packed. With buckets and baskets in tow, they loaded everything into the car. Andrei's father, Ignat, also joined them. Early in the morning, they stopped at the edge of a grove. These places were almost untouched, and the boys enthusiastically explored the forest trails. This village, where Andrei's parents lived, was like a second home to them, and they often visited. The local forests offered a rich harvest of mushrooms, which Ignat immediately pointed out. It's a good year for mushrooms. These places are so remote that city folks don't get here. Why? Don't they know the way? Asked Sasha. Oh, they know the way all right, but they're afraid of snakes. There are plenty around here. Dad, snakes? Yikes. Ignat chuckled. Well, sometimes, a grass snake may seem like a viper out of fear. Though, I must admit, real vipers do live here. Look, there's one basking in the sun. Seeing the snake, Sasha and Vovka ran toward it with excitement, but their father's stern voice stopped them. Where do you think you're going? Going to catch the snake? Bring it home? We'll bring it home to the city. A viper? Think again. Remember what I taught you. In the forest, you must never touch snakes, hedgehogs, or harm wolves and bears. The boys replied in unison, That's right. But do you really think we could handle a wolf or a bear? Well, you shouldn't be able to hurt them, Sasha protested. And the fact that a viper's bite can be deadly doesn't mean anything to you? Maybe you should try catching it, then? No, we won't catch it. We'll just look at it, but we won't go near, they promised. While they were talking, the viper sensed danger and slithered away into the undergrowth. They returned home without incident. Matriona Osipovna, seeing the enormous amount of mushrooms, clasped her hands. Oh dear, it'll take me all night to clean these. Mom, don't worry, we'll help. We'll all sit in the yard and clean them together, Andre assured her. And indeed, the whole family, along with Matryona's neighbors who came to admire the bounty, set to work. They sorted the mushrooms, some were dried, and the best ones were pickled. By 5 in the evening, the main work was done, and despite the hustle and bustle, the whole family managed to have lunch together, turning the process into a warm and united activity. Around 7 in the evening, Matryona was still busy with the mushrooms in the kitchen. 10 minutes after the last bus arrived from the city, the gate creaked, and Yulia, Andrei's wife, entered the house. She greeted everyone warmly and asked, Where's Andre? Where are the boys? They went to the club, Matryona replied, setting aside her knife and wiping her hands on her apron. I thought they'd go to bed, but then the local club director came by, found out that Andre was here, and asked him to take a look at their sound equipment. He said they bought it back in Soviet times, or even earlier. When Andre lived here before his studies, he used to fix it all the time. And now the director's sister is visiting too, so they won't be back soon. I'll go see them, then. Or do you need help? No, we've finished everything. Go on, take a break. When Yulia approached the club, loud music was playing inside. Andre had already managed to fix everything. She entered and walked toward the dance hall. Inside were some young people and a few adults, and a few couples were slowly dancing. Among them was a slim, petite girl in a sports jacket and light jeans, looking surprisingly graceful next to Andre. He was wearing an old shirt they had long since left in the village, but he still looked just as impressive in it. They were the most attractive couple on the dance floor. Yulia felt jealousy and anger boiling inside her, but outwardly she remained composed. At that moment, Andre noticed her, but he gave no sign. Their sons ran up to Yulia, excitedly calling her to dance, but she declined, unable to muster the strength. The music stopped. Andre bowed to his partner and walked over to the equipment to turn it off. The evening came to an end. The club director announced that the dance was over and said goodbye to everyone, mentioning that the next gathering would be on Wednesday. Andre approached Yulia, with their son standing beside her, chattering about how they chased a snake in the grove that morning. He greeted his wife. "Hello, did something happen?" Yulia looked at him with a twinge of bitterness. "Nothing, I just came to see my husband, who's already making new acquaintances and dancing." Andre replied grimly. "I didn't meet anyone new. I was dancing with Olesya, we went to the same school." "But you looked so good together," Yulia replied with a hint of sarcasm. "I don't know how it looked from your perspective, but I take my wedding vows seriously and have always honored them. There wasn't even a hint of flirtation here. I would never do what you did. But by Friday, I'll have all my questions answered, and I'll consider myself free from those vows." "Andre," Yulia whispered anxiously, feeling the ground slipping from under her feet. "There was nothing between Artyom and me. If there had been more, we wouldn't be talking now," Andre began calmly, but there was bitterness in his voice. "You betrayed me by destroying everything we had. The kids and I will be together again soon, and you'll be left sitting on the ruins of our marriage." Yulia tried to say something. "Can I at least explain?" "Yes, but not now," Andre cut her off sharply. "And only if you're going to tell the truth. I don't need lies or deceit. Besides, we're already home. We'll talk after dinner. I haven't told anything to my parents or the kids yet." They had dinner in the usual silence, and after the children went to their room and fell asleep, Matryona busied herself cleaning up the kitchen. Yulia helped her, trying to appear calm. Ignat had long since gone to bed. Once everything was tidy, Andrei's mother wished them good night and went to her room. Yulia and Andre remained alone in the kitchen. "So, what do you want to tell me?" Andre asked, breaking the silence. "Everything. I don't want to wait until Friday," she replied softly. "What about your work?" His voice was cold and distant. "I took leave and then planned a vacation. After my vacation, I'm going to quit." Yulia looked into his eyes, trying not to avert her gaze. "But I'll explain everything in order. I won't hide it, I was genuinely attracted to Artyom. He flirted with me in a subtle and charming way, and I got carried away. Yes, I noticed his lack of professional knowledge, and when you talked to him at the table, I realized that he never attended our university. Moreover, he hid the fact that he had a wife and children. But that's not what matters. What matters is that after you left, I looked at my life from a different angle and understood that I had made a huge mistake. I realized how deeply I love you, that I can't lose you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to grow old by your side." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I don't know how believable this sounds, but it's the absolute truth. What I did was foolish and wrong. There's no excuse for it. But I sincerely want to make things right and am ready to do whatever it takes. I've learned my lesson. Please, give me a chance to keep our family together. I'll do everything I can to rebuild your trust. I promise, you won't regret it." "Did you plan anything during that trip?" Andre asked, his voice tense but controlled. "No, our relationship hadn't gone that far. If you hadn't been there, it could have escalated quickly. I think for him, too, your presence was a deterrent," Yulia sighed, lowering her gaze. Although, of course, he was upset. Today, I disappointed him even more. I didn't sign a single document because everything needs to be redone. I didn't plan on doing it. I wrote an official note and, along with requests for leave, vacation, and resignation, submitted it to the general director. They signed everything except the resignation. The director called me, asked what happened, and said he would verify where Artyom studied, considering Artyom didn't know basic things. On the way here, Katya called me and told me that Artyom threw in his resignation and left without waiting for clearance. All his cases were transferred to her. Did he try to contact you? He did. He called several times, but I didn't answer. We have nothing to discuss. And you're here now because you decided not to wait until we returned home to confess? Yes, now everything is in your hands. If you say no, I'll leave in the morning. Andrei was silent for a moment, as if weighing her words, then calmly said, In the morning, I'm taking the boys fishing. I promised them. You can join us if you want. But it's late now, let's go to bed. Time passed, and Yulia and Andrei managed to save their marriage, though the path wasn't easy. Andrei didn't immediately believe her words, but he no longer had complaints about her behavior. Yulia, in turn, changed as well. She never forgot that day when she saw her husband, strong and handsome, dancing with a gentle and graceful woman to the loud music. That scene remained etched in her memory, reminding her of how easily one could lose everything. As for Artyom, after his resignation, he disappeared. His fate remained unknown for a long time. Eventually, it was revealed that his wife filed a missing persons report. A year and a half later, she divorced him. Artyom was declared missing by court order. It was also discovered that he never studied at the university and had worked as a laborer on a construction site for some time. Yulia and Andrei's relationship gradually recovered, and the stormy days became a memory. It wasn't quick or simple, but they chose to walk that path together. Over time, their trust was slowly rebuilt, and they found strength in each other again.